Amma sat alone in her cozy apartment, the soft hum of the city below the only sound breaking the silence. Zimbali was always alive, bustling with noise, but tonight it felt distant to her. The lights from the nearby buildings cast long shadows across her small living room, and the cold breeze from the open window brushed against her face. She stared out into the night, her mind far away from the world outside. It had been 3 years since her heart had shattered, 3 years since Kofi, the man she thought she would spend her life with, had walked away without a second thought. They had been together for 5 years. They had plans, dreams. They were supposed to grow old together, but in the blink of an eye, those dreams turned to dust. One rainy evening, after dinner, Kofi had simply told her that he didn't feel the same anymore. No explanation. No reason. He just left, and Amma was left behind, holding a broken heart and a shattered sense of self-worth. Since then, she'd built walls around her heart, carefully protecting herself from anyone who might cause the same pain. Her friends encouraged her to move on, but Amma couldn't bring herself to trust love again. She had convinced herself that being alone was better, and she put all her focus on her career, her hobbies, and her small circle of friends. But as Valentine's Day approached, something inside her began to stir, a feeling she had long suppressed. The loneliness. Zimbali was a city that reveled in romance. Heart-shaped decorations hung in every store, and the scent of flowers filled the air as couples prepared to celebrate. It was hard to ignore, and even harder to escape the constant reminders of love when it seemed to be everywhere. Amma was usually indifferent to the holiday, but this time was different. All her friends had date plans with their boo. As the days grew closer, she felt the weight of her solitude pressing down on her chest. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Tinu, her best friend. Valentine's Day dinner plans? You and Jide still on? Amma paused, staring at the message. Jide. She had met him 6 months ago. He was charming, kind, and persistent. From the moment they'd met, he had made it clear that he was interested in her. At first, she had brushed him off, not wanting to get involved with anyone, especially someone so eager. But Jide, unlike most men, had been consistent. He wasn't pushy or arrogant. Instead, he was patient, gentle, and understanding. Despite his best efforts and gifts, Amma had resisted him, too afraid to let someone in again. But tonight, as she sat in the quiet of her apartment, the thought of companionship, even for just one night, was tempting. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, and then, with a deep sigh, she typed a message to Jide. All right. I'll go. Let's make it happen. She sent the message and immediately regretted it. Was she making the right decision? Was she setting herself up for more heartbreak? Amma shook her head, trying to clear the thoughts swirling in her mind. It's just one date, just one night. She repeated it like a mantra. She needed to stop overthinking things, but the familiar feeling of vulnerability, of risking her heart again, kept gnawing at her. The evening of their first date was cool and crisp. Amma stood outside her apartment building, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her gown. She had chosen a simple, elegant outfit, a soft, burgundy dress that hugged her figure and a light scarf that fell delicately over her shoulders. She hadn't wanted to try too hard, but she also didn't want to seem indifferent. A black car pulled up to the curb, the headlights cutting through the dusk. The driver rolled down the window, and there he was, Jide, smiling as if he had been waiting for this moment his whole life. His deep, warm eyes locked onto hers, and for a split second, Amma felt a flutter of nervous excitement. His gaze was intense but not overbearing, a quality that intrigued her. Hey, Amma, Jide greeted, his voice smooth and easy. You look stunning as always. Amma smiled, grateful for his compliment, though it felt foreign coming from someone so new. Thank you, Jide, she said softly, sliding into the passenger seat of the car. As they drove through the city, the lights twinkling around them, Jide's presence felt comforting, like a gentle warmth in the cool evening. He talked about his work, his interests, and the places he wanted to visit. His voice was steady and he made her feel at ease, something she hadn't felt in a long time. They arrived at a nice, dimly lit restaurant on the outskirts of Zimbali. The place was intimate, with flickering candles on each table, and the soft hum of jazz music in the background. Jide led her inside, and the hostess guided them to a table near the window. As they sat down, Amma couldn't help but notice the way Jide's eyes never strayed from her, like he was hanging on every word she said. "So," Jide began, after their meals had arrived, "I know I've been pursuing you for a while, and I completely understand if you were hesitant at first. I get that you've been through a lot." Amma looked up at him, surprised by his openness. She hadn't expected him to acknowledge the distance she had put between them. "I've just been careful," she replied, her voice low. Jide nodded, his expression softening. "I get it. But I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. If you'll let me, I want to show you that not all men are like the ones who hurt you." Amma looked into his eyes and saw something real, something that made her want to believe him. Her heart was still cautious, but she couldn't deny that Jide had a way of making her feel safe. For the rest of the evening, the conversation flowed effortlessly. They laughed, shared stories, and even lingered over dessert as the night wore on. Amma's initial reservations began to fade, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to feel something close to hope. When they finally left the restaurant, Jide walked her back to her apartment. The night air was cooler now, but it didn't bother her. Jide stood at the door, his hand lightly resting on the frame. "I had a really great time tonight, Amma," he said, his voice sincere. "I hope you'll give me the chance to do this again. I think we could be great together." Amma hesitated, her heart conflicted. She had promised herself not to get too attached, but everything about Jide made her want to take a chance. "I think so too," she replied, her smile soft but genuine. "I'll see you soon." As she closed the door behind her, Amma leaned against it, a small sigh escaping her lips. Why did she stay away from dating for so long? It doesn't seem so bad. She called Tinu immediately and gushed about the date she had with Jide. Tinu told her, "I told you it would be nice," and they laughed and kept on talking. The days leading up to Valentine's Day felt like a whirlwind for Amma. She found herself thinking about Jide more often than she had expected. His messages, his calls, his thoughtful gifts, he had sent flowers and chocolates, officially asking her to be his Valentine. He was so cute. She could feel the walls she had built over the years weakening, but a familiar feeling of dread remained. Amma sat at her kitchen table one evening, staring at her phone. Her finger hovered over the screen as she read through the string of messages from Jide. His excitement about their upcoming date was palpable, but the closer it got, the more Amma found herself hesitating. She had promised herself that she wouldn't be vulnerable again, not after what happened with Kofi. A knock on the door broke her from her thoughts. She opened it to find Tinu, her best friend, standing on the other side, holding a small bouquet of roses. "Hey, girl," Tinu greeted, stepping inside with a bright smile. "How's it going? You ready for the big day?" Amma managed a half-smile. "I guess so. It's just Valentine's Day, right? I mean, it's no big deal." Tinu raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "No big deal? Are you kidding me? This is your first Valentine's date since Kofi. This is a huge deal, Amma. Don't pretend like you're not excited, because I am." Amma sighed, sitting down on the couch. "I don't know, Tinu. I've been thinking about it, and I'm not sure I'm ready for this. I've been burned before, and I don't want to go through that again." Tinu sat beside her. "I get it. You've been hurt, but that doesn't mean you have to shut yourself off from everything. Jide seems like a good guy. Maybe this time it'll be different. You deserve to be happy, Amma. Don't let fear hold you back. Amma looked at her friend, the words sinking in. She had convinced herself that protecting her heart was the only way to survive. But now, with Jide so close. I don't know, Amma murmured, her voice tinged with uncertainty. What if it's just another mistake? What if I end up heartbroken again? Tinu gave her a reassuring smile. Then we'll pick up the pieces, like we always do. But you won't know unless you give it a shot. You're stronger than you think, Amma. And you're not in this alone. Amma smiled weakly, grateful for Tinu's support. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Jide. Looking forward to tomorrow. Can't wait to see you, Amma. Amma stared at the message, her heart fluttering for a moment before she typed a reply. I'm looking forward to it too. See you tomorrow. When she hit send, a weight seemed to lift from her shoulders. She wasn't sure if she was making the right decision, but for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to feel hope. Maybe, just maybe, Jide would be the one to show her that love didn't always have to hurt. Valentine's Day arrived with an unexpected sense of anticipation hanging in the air. Amma dressed carefully, choosing a bright, red dress that accentuated her features without being too revealing. She spent longer than usual in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair, checking her makeup, and, for the first time in weeks, trying to convince herself that she was ready for this. The familiar nerves returned, the ones that had been absent ever since she had accepted Jide's invitation. She looked at the clock, it was almost time for him to pick her up. A knock at the door broke her reverie. Amma opened it to find Jide standing outside, a wide smile on his face and a bouquet of roses in his hand. The sight of him made her heart race, and for a moment, all the doubts that had been swirling in her mind seemed to fade away. You look absolutely beautiful, Jide said, his eyes shining with admiration as he handed her the flowers. Amma smiled softly, accepting the roses. Thank you, Jide. The car ride was filled with light conversation, but despite the calm exterior, Amma's mind was still racing. There was something about Jide's presence tonight that felt more intense. They drove out of the city, heading into the quieter parts of Zimbali, the streetlights growing fewer and further apart. Eventually, they arrived at a secluded garden restaurant on the outskirts of town, a place that was hidden away from the usual crowds. Amma glanced at Jide, sensing his excitement. This is a bit far out. Are you sure this is the place? Jide smiled, his eyes glinting mysteriously in the dim light. Trust me, Amma. It's perfect. I've been coming here for years. It's one of my favorite places. They got out of the car and walked together toward the entrance, which was lined with creeping vines and soft glowing lanterns. The air was cool, and a sense of calm seemed to settle over them as they stepped further into the garden. It's beautiful here, Amma said, taking in the peaceful atmosphere. I thought you'd like it, Jide replied, his voice warm. He guided her to a small table set under a willow tree, a single candle flickering between them. The table was arranged beautifully, fine china, soft linen, and an assortment of carefully chosen delicacies. Amma sat down, feeling the weight of the moment. Everything seemed too perfect. She glanced at Jide, and he smiled, stretching out his hand to hold hers. There was something about his gaze that made her uneasy today, but she couldn't explain it. It wasn't just admiration, it was something more. Jide smiled again. I wanted this night to be special, Amma. I wanted to show you just how much you mean to me. Amma felt a cold chill run through her, but she smiled in return, trying to push the unsettling feeling aside. I appreciate it, Jide. This is really sweet. He leaned forward, reaching into his coat pocket, and pulled out a small, ornate box. He placed it on the table between them. Amma's breath caught in her throat. The box was beautiful and it looked ancient. What is this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jide's smile widened, and there was an intensity in his eyes that made her heart skip a beat. "A gift," he said simply. "A token of my love for you, Ama." He opened the box slowly, revealing a stunning pendant, an ornate silver chain with a deep red ruby in the center. The ruby seemed to glow faintly, casting an eerie light across the table. Ama stared at it, entranced by its beauty. She hadn't expected such a lavish gift, and yet, something about it felt wrong. "I want you to wear it, Ama," Jide said softly, almost pleading. "It will bind us together, make us one." There was a strange urgency in his voice, and despite the beauty of the pendant, Ama felt a growing sense of unease. She opened her mouth to say something, but her words seemed stuck in her throat. "Jide, this is," she trailed off, unsure of how to express the discomfort rising within her. But before she could protest further, Jide gently lifted the pendant and placed it around her neck, fastening it with a soft click. The moment the pendant touched her skin, a cold, unnatural chill washed over her, creeping through her veins, freezing her to the core.